All right, welcome back. Today, we're going to tackle a word that sounds, super complicated, derivatives. But here's the thing. What if I told you that you probably already get the basic idea behind them? Yeah, for real. Let's dive in.
So, what does a cricket match have in common with a global bank? I know, it sounds like the setup to a really weird joke, right? But seriously, what could possibly link those two things? Well, the answer is actually a massive idea, one that pretty much runs the entire modern financial world. Okay, picture this. You and I were at a huge cricket match. The legendary Virat Kohli is up to bat. The crowd is going wild, and the big question on everyone's mind is, how's he going to do? So to make things a little more interesting, we decide to make a simple bet. Will he score more than 40 runs or less?
Now you're feeling pretty confident. You think he's on fire today. So you turn to me and say, all right, I'll bet you he scores over 40 runs.
I'm not so sure. Maybe the pitch looks a little tricky today, or the bowler's just on a roll. So I take the other side of that. I say, you're on. I'll bet he scores under 40. We shake hands. It's a deal.
So what did we just do? We made a simple agreement. And whether you win or I win, it all depends entirely on something else happening, right? It depends on Virat Kohli's final score. And that, right there, is the core idea. And believe it or not, congratulations! You've just created a derivative. See? It's not some crazy, complex financial wizardry. At its absolute core, it's just an agreement whose value depends on something else, just like our bet.
Okay, so let's step away from the cricket pitch for a second and head over to the world of finance. We're going to put some official names on what we just did, and you're going to see how our simple little bet is the exact same concept that powers a massive global market. This is the key takeaway. A derivative contract, well, it isn't worth anything on its own. Think about it. A 100 rupee note is worth 100 rupees. Simple. But our bet? The piece of paper we scribbled it on is worthless. The bet itself is only worth something because of what Kohli does. Its value is, wait for it, derived from something else. Get it?
And that something else has a fancy financial name. It's called the underlying asset. For our bet, the underlying asset was Virat Kohli's score. But in the real world of finance, it could be almost anything. It could be the price of a stock, the value of a currency, a commodity like gold, or even, and I'm not kidding, the amount of rainfall in a certain region.
Okay, so now we know what a derivative is. The next logical question is, where do people make these deals? And it turns out there are basically two main places, two big arenas, and they work in completely different ways.
This really breaks it down. On one side, you've got over-the-counter, or OTC. Just think of this as our private handshake deal. It's totally customizable, we can agree to any terms we want, but there's a bigger risk, right? What if I lose and just refuse to pay you? That's default risk. Then, on the other side, you have the big, formal exchanges. Here, everything is standardized. The contracts are all the same. The big advantage? It's way, way safer, because there's a middleman, a clearinghouse, that guarantees everyone gets paid.
So in that private, custom-fit OTC world, you find things like forwards and swaps. A forward is basically just a private agreement to buy or sell something later at a price you agree on today. Super tailored, very specific.
And on those big public exchanges, that's where you'll find futures, which are really just standardized, publicly traded versions of forwards, and options, which are a little different. We'll get more into those in a sec.
All right, besides where they're traded, there's one more big way to slice and dice these things. And it all comes down to the kind of promise you're making. Is it an ironclad, unbreakable vow? Or is it more of a, maybe if I feel like it, kind of option?
And here are the two flavors. First, you have a forward commitment. Think of this as that unbreakable vow. Both of us, you and I, are obligated to follow through, no matter what. It's a done deal. Then you have a contingent claim. This is more like a conditional promise. The deal only happens if something else happens first. One person has the choice, the option to go through with it, but not the obligation.
So which ones are these ironclad promises? Well, that would be your forwards, your futures, and your swaps. When you get into one of those, both sides are locked in, period.
And what about those conditional if-then deals? That's the world of options. I mean, the name kind of gives it away, right? You have an option. And you also have things like credit derivatives, which are basically insurance policies that pay out if, say, a company defaults on its loans. Okay, that was a lot, I know.
We covered what a derivative is, where you can trade them, and what kind of promise they represent. So now let's pull it all together. Let's create a super simple cheat sheet to make sense of it all.
And here it is, your ultimate derivatives cheat sheet. Look, you can see it clearly now. Forwards, they're those private OTC deals, and they're a firm commitment. Futures, they're also a firm commitment, but they're standardized and traded on an exchange. Swaps, back to the private OTC world, and also a firm commitment. And then you've got options. They're the flexible ones. They can be traded either way, OTC or on an exchange, and they are always a contingent claim, an option, not an obligation.
So think about where we started. A simple bet on a cricket score. And we ended up mapping out the basics of a financial market worth trillions and trillions of dollars. Which leads to the big final question, doesn't it? Are these things a smart way to manage risk, or are they just a really complicated way to gamble? And the honest answer is, they're both. An airline can use a derivative to lock in a future fuel price and protect itself from risk. That's smart. But a speculator can use a different derivative to make a massive risky bet. That's a gamble. It all comes down to how you use them.